Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaja's daily class. Today's class is given by Her Grace Gopika Radhika Mataji. Mataji is going to continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam series of first canto, 15th chapter, verse number 15. Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you, Mataji, for your time and association for all of us. Hope more devotees will join shortly. You can please take over, Mataji. So, Mataji, should I share my screen or will you able to? Mataji, you're on mute or I don't know. Your voice is not audible.
Is it better now?
Yes, Mataji. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm saying right now for the verse, this is fine.
Yeah.
But if after that I can share the
Okay, Mataji. Yeah.
So, okay. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse 15. Yo Bhishmakana Guru Shalya Chamushvatabhra Rajanya Varya Ratha Mandala Manditasu Agre Charo Mama Vibhorakha Yuthapana Mayur Manansi Chadrisha Saha Oja Archat. So, translation. It was he only, that is Krishna, who withdrew the duration of life from everyone, and who, in the battlefield, withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Lord Sri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. Srila Prabhupada's purport, the absolute personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, expands himself by his plenary Paramatma portion in everyone's heart. And thus he directs everyone in the matter of recollection, forgetfulness, knowledge, the absence of intelligence, and all psychological activities. Bhagavad Gita 15:15. As the Supreme Lord, he can increase or decrease the duration of life of a living being. Thus the Lord conducted the battle of Kurukshetra according to his own plan. He wanted that battle to establish Yudhishthir as the emperor of this planet, and to facilitate this transcendental business, he killed all who were on the opposite party by his omnipotent will. The other party was equipped with all military strength, supported by big generals like Bhishma, Drona, and Shalya. And it would have been physically impossible for Arjun to win the battle had the Lord not helped him by every kind of tactic. Such tactics are generally followed by every statesman, even in modern warfare. But they're all done materially by powerful espionages, military tactics, and diplomatic maneuvers. But because Arjun was the Lord's affectionate devotee, the Lord did all this himself without personal anxiety by Arjun. That is the way of the devotional service to the Lord. उपमज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिधि नाम्ने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, just reading the translation once more. So it was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone, and who, in the battlefield, withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Lord Sri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. So, yeah, we are continuing in this series of verses where Arjun is imparting the news of Krishna's disappearance from the planet to Maharaj Yudhishthir. And in the recent previous verses, Arjun described, how all his ability, always, all his achievements, accomplishments, everything had always actually come from Krishna and his prowess. And now he's sharing further memories of Krishna, further recollections of Krishna's mercy upon him. And so in this particular verse, very beautiful verse, we basically find two different aspects here, very interrelated, but yeah. So that one, that Krishna withdrew the duration of life of everyone on that battlefield, Kurukshetra battlefield. And he withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm. So these two things. And in this way, yeah, Krishna ensured the victory of the Pandavas over the Kauravas because, as Prabhupada points out here, it was his plan to establish Maharaj Yudhishthir as the emperor of the planet, and which was, again, that was necessary in turn to facilitate the welfare of the entire planet because Krishna wanted a devotee emperor to rule the entire world for the benefit of all living entities, which is the reason why Krishna makes his appearances time and again on this earthly planet. So for the fulfillment of that overall scheme, for the welfare of all living entities, Krishna orchestrated things in such a way that Maharaj Yudhishthir gets crowned as the emperor. And for that, yeah, he withdrew the duration of life and he withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm. And therefore, even though the arrangement on the other side, it was expert and it was more than adequate, but still the Pandavas are the side that turns victorious. So I just thought to, discuss today's verse under these two headings, Krishna's feature, his manifestation as Kal, which is, the controller of time as well as death. In Sanskrit, as we know, these two meanings are contained in the same single word, Kal. Kal means time as well as death. And of course, Krishna as the source of all ability. So it is he who controls all ability. So he is the one who can bestow it as well as withdraw it as he chooses to. And how we are therefore entirely dependent on Krishna in every sphere of life because of this. So, yeah. So, I mean, of course, the very first verse that comes to mind by reading today's purport is Krishna's announcement to Arjun in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. After Krishna has displayed his splendorous Virat Roop to Arjun, and Arjun is awestruck, overwhelmed, and he asks Krishna two questions. Who are you and what is your mission? What is your purpose? And so this is Krishna's response that, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Kalosmi Loka Kshayakrit Pravriddho Lokan Samahartumiha Pravrittaha Rite Pitvamna Bhavishyanti Sarve Yeva Sthitaha Pratyanikeshu Yodhaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people. And with the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. So the battle has not even started yet. But this is Krishna's declaration that with the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. And why is that? Because the person who gets to decide this is Krishna himself. And why is that? Because, yeah, this is Krishna's manifestation, supreme manifestation in the material world as time, the clock ticking by. And that is why time is equated with death, because in the material world, what brings about anything, any change, any decline, any destruction is, after all, time. It's time which draws us closer to death. I mean, in one sense, it is time which brings about growth and manifestation and fructification, but it's also that same time which then ultimately leads to ultimate degeneration and decline and death. And that time is Krishna's feature. And therefore, like even in a like regular linguistic convention, we say as sure as death, because yeah, if there is one thing that is certain beyond all doubt in this material world, and that is death, and that is Krishna. And so, yeah, Prabhupada, in his purport to this particular verse, he writes that it is written in the Vedas that the supreme truth destroys everything, even the Brahmanas, as stated in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.25. So this is a verse which translates as, eventually all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured like a meal by the Supreme. This form of the Supreme Lord is the all-devouring giant. And here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring time. And Prabhupada continues to say that except for a few Pandavas, everyone who was present on that battlefield would be devoured by him. Arjun was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight, that there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjun stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked, even if he did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Supreme Lord. So, yeah, it's very interesting and noteworthy how Prabhupada says here that, in fact, they were already dead. And that's what Arjun sees practically, right, in the Virat Rupa, how all these personalities, they are being chewed by the mouths and the teeth of the Virat Rupa of Krishna. So, yeah, in one sense, like Krishna says, Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipa, that everyone who's born has to die. So, in one sense, our death is already, it's predestined, that fact is logged. What is keeping us away from it right now is time, and what will ultimately bring us close to it and bring us to death is also time. So, yeah, that is, and that time is Krishna. Therefore, it's the supreme power in this material world, which is something which, even the most atheistic person then ultimately is forced to recognize subordination and submission to this feature of Krishna, which is, yeah, death. And in the Bhagavatam, we find a very interesting, and this is in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam, as many of us would be aware. We get to know about different forms of annihilation, different forms of destruction on a universal scale, from a micro to a macro level. And so we have, and the annihilation is called pralay. So we have 4 types of pralay, which is naimittika pralay, prakritik pralay, atyantik pralay, and nitya pralay. So as we can see here in the 12th canto, we get this description that the naimittika pralay is basically when Lord Brahma sleeps at night. During his night, Brahma sleeps. And at that time, all the 3 planetary systems, they meet destruction. So this is naimittika. It's occasional annihilation. And then we have prakritik pralay, which is at the end of Lord Brahma's lifespan of 100 years. So at that time, it's described that the 7 elements of material nature, beginning with the Mahat and the entire universal egg composed of them, are destroyed. So literally, the whole Brahmanda gets destroyed upon the death of the supreme living being in that Brahmanda, which is Lord Brahma. And then we have a pralay which is at an even higher level, which is the atyantik pralay. There's like the most ultimate kind of pralay, which is when a person achieves knowledge of the absolute and he understands factual reality. So he perceives the entire created universe as separate from the absolute and therefore unreal. This is called atyantik, or final annihilation. So this is like the final, severing of the cord that connects us to the material world. So in that sense, this is also a form of annihilation of the most ultimate kind, because this is permanent. And then we have this thing, which, like these things are not very apparent to us. This is like this occurs only once in a day of Brahma, once in 24 hours of Brahma. This occurs once in a lifetime of Brahma. This is only, with regards to those exalted personalities who are able to sever this connection with the material world. But then we have this pralay, which is something which we have constant daily experience of moment to moment, which is nitya pralay, wherein it pertains to the continuous process of creation and annihilation, which all created beings, beginning with Brahma, constantly undergo. So all material entities undergo transformation and are constantly and swiftly eroded by the mighty currents of time. These stages of existence created by beginningless and endless time are not visible, just as the infinitesimal momentary changes of position of planets in the sky cannot be directly seen. So this is basically referring to, that constant, ceaseless, relentless process of decline that's, that starts with right from the birth of anything, whether it's a living, anything material, any object that is created, our bodies that get created at a certain point of time when we take birth. Right from the beginning of the birth, every second brings us closer and closer to greater and greater decline, and that is Nitya Pralaya. Initially, it seems like growth, but that growth, ultimately transforms into annihilation. And that is what Krishna says when Krishna implies when he says that verse, Dehinosmin yatha dehe, kamaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati, right? So as one passes from, childhood to boyhood to youth to old age, and then on to another body. So that is the Nitya Pralaya. The shelf life of every object, things expire, things perish. Our bodies die at a certain point. So all that moment to moment, the decline that takes place, which is not very evident, by our naked eyes, we cannot see it very evidently, but in course of time, we can see, yes, this thing has progressed towards decline. And that's why, we see through time-lapse videos, for example, they give us an idea of how that transformation takes place. And that is one way where we can see Krishna with our own eyes and feel his presence every time, everywhere, at every moment. This is Krishna. Krishna is Kal. This is one of the features of Kal. And this is happening constantly at every moment all around us. So this is one very real and palpable way that Krishna's presence can be perceived and appreciated. So this was one aspect that this verse brings out, Krishna's controlling of death, controlling of time, and therefore of death. And we get some examples. For example, here, this is one example that I thought to bring out. This is from Bhagavatam Canto 8. This is Bali Maharaj speaking to his followers. So this is after Bali Maharaj has been captured and tied with the ropes of Varun upon the orders of Lord Vaman. And the demigods and the associates of Lord Vishnu, they are capturing and killing all the demons, which are the Daityas, Bali Maharaj's followers. And so Bali Maharaj, he advises them to stop resisting and to go down to the lower planetary systems, not to fight them anymore. So he says here that, O Daityas, this is Bali Maharaj saying, by human efforts, no one can supersede the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can bring happiness and distress to all living entities. The supreme time factor, which represents the Supreme Person, was previously in our favor and not in favor of the demigods, but now that same time factor is against us. No one can surpass this time representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by material power, by the council of ministers, by intelligence, by diplomacy, by fortresses, by mystic mantras, by drugs, by herbs, or by any other means. So this is a very telling verse, and very it echoes what we read in today's purport as well, right? That the Kauravas, their arrangements were perfect, they were more than adequate, they had the greatest generals in the world. As we know, their armies were far larger than the Pandavas, 7 Akshohinis versus 11 Akshohinis. And yet, and I mean, they had even Krishna's own army, right? The Narayani Sena, the Narayani armies were taken up by Duryodhan. Arjun chose Krishna, even though Krishna had promised not to take up any weapons, but Arjun chose Krishna on one side. And here we had all this other world-class military prowess. And yet that is the side which ends up losing, because it's Krishna whose decision who chose what the final outcome would be. And therefore, yeah, no one can surpass this time representation by any material means, any mundane means. So yeah, this is one feature that comes out in today's verse about Krishna controlling time and death. Then the other feature which we saw was how Arjuna is saying that Krishna withdrew the speculative power and the enthusiasm of all the people on the other side, the Kauravas side. So yeah, basically that means he and Prabhupada quotes, right, the Bhagavad Gita, famous Bhagavad Gita verse in his purport, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matah smritir jnanam apohanam cha, that I'm seated in everyone's heart and from me come remembrance, knowledge and forgetfulness. So yeah, as Prabhupada comments in the purport, right, that Krishna is the one, yeah, who is not only the source of our lifespan, our duration of life, but he's basically the source of all our abilities, our strength, our enthusiasm, our energy, our intelligence, our sense of discrimination, remembrance, knowledge, forgetfulness, everything. Krishna is the source. And so, yeah, in that case, Krishna chose to withdraw these things from the Kauravas in order to enable Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers to win victory, because that was needed for the planet's welfare. So, yeah, not only does Krishna control our lifespans, he basically controls all our abilities. So, we are completely dependent on Krishna. Humankind, any living entity, any Jiva soul is completely dependent on the Supreme Lord for any outcome, any and all outcomes. Similarly, yeah, here also Krishna says the same thing in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, that Shabda ke Paurusham Drishu. That, O son of Kanti, yeah, I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, the sound in ether, and Paurusham Drishu, the ability in man. So, yeah, the very ability that we have, like basically all our actions are, after all, an outcome of our ability, right? Anything that we manage to do is because we may be having some or the other ability to do it. And that ability is coming from Krishna. So it's up to Krishna to give it or to withdraw it. It's not ours. It's not ours to claim. So basically, yeah, we can neither claim credit for anything, nor can we basically think that, okay, this is something I can do or not do. It's not for us to say that. We can only endeavor our best and pray to Krishna for the outcome, because the ability is Krishna. It's not us. It's not in us. And why this and how this whole thing works out is also we get a philosophical explanation regarding this, which is that on a material level, because we saw right in the purport today, it's described how the Kauravas, they had perfect arrangements, and yet it failed. And that is, of course, that's an old story. It's like history has repeated itself innumerable times in this regard. We have countless examples in the material world of this thing, both recent and historical examples of all kinds of the most flawless, seemingly infallible arrangements that perish ultimately. And and that seems puzzling. Like people, we find it shocking when such things happen, when the most perfect arrangements come crashing down, because it seems like what could have gone wrong? How could this go wrong? How could this meet such an end, meet such a fate? And that is because we learn from our scriptures that actually what we see in terms of the arrangements, what we count as factors towards success, is only half of the story. It's just a part of the story. And why is that? Because our scriptures differentiate between two causes. So one is the immediate cause and one is the remote cause. So as Prabhupada says here in this conversation, which is recorded in the Science of Self-Realization, that, for example, the scientists, they only observe the immediate cause. They do not perceive the remote cause. So there are two causes, immediate and remote. And Krishna is described in the Vedas, as we know, Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. So if you understand the cause of all causes, then you understand everything. Tasminnu bhagavato vigyate sarvamidam vigyatam bhavati. If you know the original cause, the later subordinate causes are automatically known. So basically, yeah, all the arrangements that we make in this material world in order to accomplish anything, they are all just the immediate cause. But there is also a remote cause, which is, controlling and deciding what will become of everything, which is higher and broader than the immediate cause. And that is Krishna. And that is why, even though the immediate causes may seem apparently completely perfect and flawless, but still plans come crashing down because, yeah, the remote cause was perhaps not in favor of that thing happening. And that is, yeah, the Vedic perspective that we receive. And of course, also we find in the Gita the same concept where when Krishna in the 18th chapter, he describes the 5 factors of action. When Krishna says, right, adhishthanam tatha karta karanam cha prithak vidham, vividhascha prithak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. So he says there are 5 factors, right, which are the cause of the accomplishment of any action. So what are those 5 factors? The place of action, which is the body, the performer, which is the soul, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. So yeah, all these 4 we have direct perception of, the body, our soul. Yes, not many people recognize the existence of the soul, but yeah, and our senses and our endeavors. But then we have Devam Chaivatra Pachamam, which is the 5th factor, which is providence, the super soul. And therefore, Prabhupada says in the purport, for each and every action, there is a different endeavor, but all one's activities depend on the will of the super soul who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is the super cause. So, yeah, we have one level of causes, but then there is a higher level of cause, the Supreme Cause, which is the Supreme Lord. That's the Devam. And that factor, unless that factor is in our favor, then no outcome can be achieved. And that is the factor which, yeah, most often gets overlooked in our modern society. And therefore, as Krishna also says in the Gita, because, yeah, here Prabhupada is saying, Devam Shaivatra Panchamam, that's the super soul. So Krishna also says, in the 13th chapter, Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmiti chapyukto dehismin purusha para, that it's about the super soul, that there's another transcendental enjoyer in this body, who's the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the Upadrashta and the Anumanta, the overseer and the permitter, and who is known as the super soul. So yeah, there's someone who is constantly witnessing, and he's also the one who is permitting, the sanctioner, and that is Krishna. So Prabhupada says in the purport that because the Paramatma is the Supreme Lord, he is present within to sanction the individual soul's desiring material enjoyment. Without the sanction of the Supreme Soul, the individual soul cannot do anything. And therefore, as it is often said, that, yeah, our efforts are necessary, but they are not sufficient. They are necessary because that's how we convey basically our desire, our intent. But then the outcome is not dependent on that. It is necessary, but it's not sufficient. The sufficiency part, like, we had that, right? The 2 fingers that were short in, the rope that Mother Yashoda was trying to tie baby Krishna with, Lord Damodar with. We are in, towards the end of Kartik right now. And those 2 fingers that were too short each time, no matter how long was the rope, no matter how much rope she tied to lengthen it, but still it was 2 fingers too short each time. And those 2 fingers represented, her endeavor and Krishna's mercy, Krishna's consent. So, when Krishna saw that, okay, she is endeavoring so much, my devotee is endeavoring so much to serve me in her Vatsalya ras. So then Krishna, so that was the 1 finger, Mother Yashoda's endeavor, and then Krishna, out of mercy upon his devotees' efforts, he chose to become tied up, and that completed the 2nd finger, which was Krishna's consent, Krishna's sanction. And then, she was able to tie Krishna. Otherwise, no matter, again, the same thing, no matter how much we tried, no matter how long apparently the rope is, it's still not working. So, that is this function of Krishna. He's the permitter. And So coming to some examples from the Bhagavatam, we have this really beautiful verse from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev after Nrsimhadev has killed Hiranyakashipu, where he says, Balasya neha sharanam pitarau Nrsimha, nardasya chagada mudanvati majjato no, taptasya tat pratividhir ihanja cheshtas tavad vibho tanubhritam tvadupekshitanam. That, my Lord Nrsimhadev, O Supreme, because of a bodily conception of life, embodied souls neglected and not cared for by you cannot do anything for their betterment. Whatever remedies they accept, although perhaps temporarily beneficial, are certainly impermanent. For example, a father and mother cannot protect their child, a physician and medicine cannot relieve a suffering patient, and a boat on the ocean cannot protect a drowning man. So, yeah, same concept that we have in today's verse. These material arrangements, they may be necessary, but they are not sufficient, because no matter how much a father and mother try, they cannot necessarily protect the child. Or no matter how competent is the physician, or no matter how potent is the medicine, it's not guaranteed that the patient will be cured. And just because there is a boat on the ocean, I mean, the all-time classic example is the Titanic, right? The best, most formidable, most flawless ship that was ever designed and built, and still, cannot protect a drowning man. And so Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that though parental care through remedies for different kinds of disease, and though means of protection on the water, in the air, on the land, through all this, there is always an endeavor for relief from various kinds of suffering in the material world. But none of them are guaranteed measures for protection. They may be beneficial temporarily, but they afford no permanent benefit. Despite the presence of a father and mother, a child cannot be protected from accidental death, disease, and various other miseries. No one can help, including the parents. Ultimately, the shelter is the Lord. And one who takes shelter of the Lord is protected. That is guaranteed. So, as we saw earlier, it is said, as sure as death. So that is acknowledged in the material world. And death is a representation of Krishna. So if that is guaranteed, then Krishna's protection is also certainly guaranteed, because anything pertaining to Krishna, that is something we can rely upon. So as the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Kaunteya pratijanehi na me bhakta pranashyati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. Therefore, unless one is protected by the mercy of the Lord, no remedial measure can act effectively. One should consequently depend fully on the causeless mercy of the Lord. And then, of course, Prabhupada makes this important point that although as a matter of routine duty, one must, of course, accept other remedial measures, no one can protect one who is neglected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's not being said that, one should not, like parents should not care for their children, or if we fall sick, we should not take medicines or go to a doctor. That's not the intent of these verses. We do that as a duty, as a service to Krishna in course of life. But at the same time, we have the right orientation, have the right understanding that this is not what is going to cause the cure or cause the welfare of the child. The ultimate cause is Krishna. So we do our best, but depend on Krishna. And so one really great example that I love in the Bhagavatam, which demonstrates this aspect of, Krishna being the source of all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and how he influences the outcome ultimately, is we find in this particular section of the Bhagavatam. It's in the 7th canto, chapter 10. So this is basically describing how, Lord Shiva, after the demigods had defeated the demons, so the demons, they approached Mayadanav for shelter. And Mayadanav, he built them 3 basically residences which were completely invisible to the demigods. So residing in those residences, the demons, they started creating havoc in the entire universe. So the demigods approached Lord Shiva for protection. So Lord Shiva, he shoots down those residences with his arrows, and all these demons who were inhabiting those residences, they fall dead. But then Mayadanav, he had an arrangement for that. He had a well or a kind of pond filled with nectar. And so he revived by means of that nectar-filled pond, he revived all the dead demons who had been killed by Lord Shiva. So yeah, that was a real problem, because now how do they get killed? Each time he kills them, then they have this elixir to revive them. So Lord Vishnu comes up with this solution that Lord Brahma takes the form of a calf and Lord Vishnu takes the form of a cow. And at noon, they entered the residences and drank all the nectar in the well. So because the nectar is the source, right, of reviving all the demons again and again. So they take the form of a cow and a calf, they enter the residences and drink all that nectar. And now the interesting thing is that the demons could see the calf and cow. They're actually seeing that, okay, they are drinking up all that nectar, which is the source of our life. But because of the illusion created by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the demons could not forbid them. The great mystic Maidanav became aware that the calf and cow were drinking the nectar, and he could understand this to be the unseen power of providence. Thus he spoke to the demons who were grievously lamenting. Maidanav said, "What has been destined by the Supreme Lord for oneself, for others, or for both oneself and others cannot be undone anywhere or by anyone, whether one be a demigod, a demon, a human being, or anyone else." And yeah, Prabhupada says in the purport that Maidanav said, "However I plan, or you plan, or both of us plan, the Lord has planned what is to happen. No one's plan will be successful without his sanction." And Prabhupada goes on to comment that we may make our own various plans, but unless they are sanctioned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they will never be successful. Hundreds and millions of plans are made by all kinds of living entities, but without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, they are futile. So yeah, it's just such a very clear and vivid example here. They were seeing the calf and cow drinking up that nectar with their very own eyes, and still just somehow or the other, they could not do anything to prevent it. And they're lamenting the fact that all this nectar is being finished up. Still, they cannot do anything. They're unable to do anything. So that's how, yeah, Krishna, it's up to him when he withdraws the power of initiative, of action, of vitality, then yeah, there's basically not much, there's nothing at all that we can do. And that brings us to then, how does this translate into practical application for us? What do we make of this in terms of how we are to live our lives? And that is basically that, okay, so it's Krishna who, by whose plan everything is happening, right? Because like Maidana was saying here, the Lord has planned what is to happen. And yeah, as we saw in today's purport also, that Prabhupada is saying Krishna had this plan that Yudhishthira Maharaj has to be crowned the emperor. And therefore, he arranged everything so that that outcome will be realized. So then how do we live in accordance with this information that we have from the Vedic literature? It is to basically align ourselves with Krishna's plan. That's basically the only thing we can do. We have our minute free will with which we can choose which way to go. Now, we don't have the power to independently bring about any outcome. But what we do have the power to do is to consciously choose to align ourselves with that supreme powerful being by whose plan everything is happening. And that is the message that Krishna gives to Arjun in Gita. Like after that particular verse, which we started today's class with, which is Kalosmi Loka Kshayakrit Pravrito, because Arjun asks, "Who are you? What is your mission?" Krishna says, "I'm time, and my mission is to destroy all these worlds." And then in the very next verse, Krishna says in his Virat Rupa, he says, "Tasmat vamuttishta yasholabhasva jitva shatrun bhungshva rajyam samriddham mayye vaite nihitaha purvameva nimitta matram bhavasavya." That therefore get up, prepare to fight and win glory, conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. So yeah, Krishna's plan is infallible. That is bound to happen. Whether or not we do anything, that plan will come to pass. But then we can choose to participate in that plan using our free will. And that way we get to be instruments in Krishna's plan, and we, get the spiritual benefit of that in the form of Krishna's mercy. So purport, just become an instrument, nimitta matra. This word is also very significant. The whole world is moving according to the plan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons who do not have sufficient knowledge think that nature is moving without a plan and all manifestations are but accidental formations. There are many so-called scientists who suggest that perhaps it was like this, maybe like that, but there is no question of perhaps and maybe. There is a specific plan being carried out in this material world. So yeah, this material world has been consciously designed, and it has been designed with a specific purpose. It's like a machine, any instrument, any machine. It has been consciously designed by someone, manufactured by someone, and with a plan in mind. It is meant to perform some particular function. So what is this plan? This cosmic manifestation is a chance for the conditioned souls to go back to Godhead, back to home. And as long as they have the domineering mentality, which makes them try to lord it over material nature, they are conditioned. But anyone who can understand the plan of the Supreme Lord and cultivate Krishna consciousness is most intelligent. If one is in full Krishna consciousness and his life is devoted to the Lord's transcendental service, he is perfect. So yeah, that's how devotees live their lives. They live their lives in accordance with Krishna's plan, aligning themselves with Krishna's plan, which is basically, and Krishna's plan is to take all conditioned souls back to Godhead. So yeah, devotees live their lives in such a way that they can go back to Godhead and that they can inspire the maximum possible souls to also take up this path. And that is what we find expressed in Prabhupada's poem on Jaladuta as well, where Prabhupada wrote these famous lines in Markine Bhagavad Dharma that, "Oh Lord, I'm just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, oh Lord, make me dance as you like." That kashtera putale, that I'm just like a wooden puppet. And so, yeah, nachao se mate, make me dance as you like. And Prabhupada concludes by saying that I have no faith, I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. So yeah, that's the devotee's attitude as exemplified by Prabhupada. For himself, he has no confidence in his own abilities. He's not even claiming confidence in his devotion, not even in his faith in the holy name. But the confidence is in Krishna, that if Krishna likes, he can fulfill the real purport of Bhaktivedanta. So, thank you so much. With you, Srimati Mata.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much for bringing out nice aspects from this verse. Very nice references from Shastra and reminders for all of us. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, if you have any questions or comments, you can please go ahead. And please turn on your cameras if possible. Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Sridevi Mataji.
Thank you. Please accept my humble obeisances, HG Gopika Radhika and all the Vaishnavas. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev. Such a beautiful class. Once again, Gopika Radhika. And I was thinking about this, you have a plan, I have a plan, but Krishna has his plan. Prabhupada said that. And Krishna always wins. So, of course, as devotees, we understand that it is Krishna's plan ultimately, which, we want to carry out. But in the course of our devotional service, our activities, so many times we come up with this plan or that plan. I want to serve like this. I want to do like this. I want, to see this happen. So Vaishnavas become very happy, etc. So many things. So how will we know which plan is the right plan? Because all of them are devotional. All of them are meant for satisfying Vaishnava Guru Krishna. So how do we know where to put our energies?
Yeah, that's a very pertinent point, Mataji, and thank you for bringing that out. I guess I'll just share some thoughts that come to my head, but yeah, maybe other devotees can also share if they have any reflections on this. I guess maybe to some degree, then, as you rightly pointed out, there are so many valid courses of action that we can pursue in the course of devotional service, and they are all equally valid and bona fide. So I guess maybe then all these other factors come into play, right? That what's our, for example, our temperament in terms of, the varna and ashram, what's most suited to our conditioned nature, our aptitude at a material level, perhaps our current circumstances keep changing, what phase of life we are in, what season, what age group, our family situation, current responsibilities, physical situation, all these things. And then so maybe that's one common sense factor, but then I guess also in some cases, maybe a devotee might be given a specific instruction by the spiritual master or a senior devotee that might be a guiding force in that devotee's life. Like Prabhupada was given this very specific instruction by Saraswati Thakur. So that, basically dictated the course of Prabhupada's life. So that might be another factor. And I guess, maybe when there is a dilemma, then it's always useful to consult with people who know us well, devotees who know us well, so they can also perhaps guide us better in what might be the right thing to put our energy into. Sometimes even a bit of trial and error helps. We can try something, and if we feel that, this is turning out to be successful, then it can be taken as a confirmation that, this is the way Krishna wants us to go. We can pursue that. If not, then, we can try changing the course of action, etc.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Any more questions or comments? Yeah, I guess there are no more questions, Mataji. Thank you so much once again for your class and time, Mataji. Thank you so much. Dear devotees, if there are no more questions, I think we can end the call here. So, still we have a little bit more time. I was thinking we can end the call here now. Thank you so much, Mataji. We look forward to your more classes, Mataji. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.